"Don't touch the silk, dear. You'll leave a smudge that costs more than your monthly rent." The words were spat like venom. Eleanor Vance, the aging, silver-haired chairwoman of Vance Global, didn't just insult the woman in front of her, she physically dismissed her. With a sharp, stinging flick of her wrist, she slapped Maya Sterling's hand away from the velvet-lined display where the merger contracts lay. Eleanor looked at Maya's charcoal cashmere suit and let out a dry, rattling laugh that silenced the entire classic mahogany-paneled lobby. "Who invited her anyway?" Eleanor asked, her voice projecting toward the grand staircase. "This is a signing for the elite, not a walkthrough for the curious. Get her out. She's polluting the atmosphere of this room just by standing in it." Before Maya could utter a syllable, Eleanor stepped into her personal space, the light from the massive crystal chandeliers above glinting off her diamonds like predatory eyes. Eleanor gripped Maya's upper arm with a strength born of pure, generational spite, her manicured nails digging into the expensive charcoal fabric. With a sharp, violent jerk, she began dragging Maya toward the heavy, brass-reinforced glass doors. "You think you belong here because you bought a nice blazer?" Eleanor hissed, her face inches from Maya's. "People like you are guests in this world, not players. Now, exit through the front so everyone can see you leave. Maybe it'll teach you about boundaries." Maya didn't fight back. She didn't shout. She allowed herself to be shoved out onto the cold concrete of the sidewalk, the glass doors hissing shut behind her with a definitive metallic click. Inside the lobby, a dozen witnesses, a woman in a vibrant sapphire blue gown, a man in a deep emerald green blazer, and a young executive in a mustard yellow tie, watched the humiliation. Some looked away in shame. Others, emboldened by Eleanor's cruelty, chuckled into their champagne flutes. Maya stood on the sidewalk, the wind whipping against her charcoal suit. She didn't look broken. She straightened her cuffs, smoothed the fabric where Eleanor's nails had left indentations, and looked at the building as if she were a surgeon preparing for an incision. She pulled a gold-plated phone from her pocket. "It's Maya," she said, her voice a calm, vibrating hum. "Execute Clause 8.3. Total withdrawal of the Sterling Fund. I want the liquidity bridge cut before the ink on their vanity contracts is even dry. Let the empire starve." She hung up and walked toward a black sedan idling at the curb. She wasn't leaving. She was just getting ready for the second act. Inside the building, Eleanor Vance was at the height of her power. She walked back to the center of the lobby, smoothing her navy silk dress. "Now that the trash has been cleared," she announced to the room, "let us move to the boardroom. We have a $6.7 billion future to secure." The group moved toward the elevators, their colorful silks and expensive wools creating a parade of arrogance. They ascended to the 47th floor, the Cathedral of Control, where the glass walls offered a view of the city they thought they owned. Eleanor sat at the head of a 30-foot mahogany table, her eyes gleaming. "Where is the Sterling representative?" she asked, looking at her CFO, a man in a navy pinstripe suit who was suddenly looking very pale. "They were supposed to be here 10 minutes ago to sign over the first $2 billion. They aren't answering, Eleanor," the CFO stammered. "And the wire transfer, it's been flagged." "Flagged by who?" Eleanor snapped. "By the owner of the fund," a voice said from the doorway. The double doors swung open. Maya Sterling walked back in. She wasn't being dragged this time. She walked with a slow, rhythmic pace that made the chandelier above seem to tremble. She didn't sit at the back. She walked straight to the empty chair directly opposite Eleanor Vance. Eleanor's face turned a mottled purple. "How did you get back in here? I had you thrown out." "Security." Maya didn't flinch. She placed a single black tablet on the table and slid it across the polished wood. "The security works for the person who pays the building's insurance, Eleanor. And as of 3 minutes ago, that's me." The room went silent. The executives in their emerald and sapphire finery froze. "You're the nobody from the lobby?" Eleanor whispered, her voice finally cracking. "I'm the woman whose suit you tried to smudge," Maya replied. "And you're the woman who just lost $6.7 billion because she couldn't keep her hands to herself." The silence in the boardroom was absolute, the kind of silence that precedes a total structural collapse. Eleanor Vance looked at the tablet Maya had slid across the table, her hands trembling as she saw the Sterling Fund seal glowing on the screen. The executives in their vibrant silks and sharp navy suits sat like statues, the light from the crystal chandelier above reflecting in their wide, panicked eyes. "This is a mistake," Eleanor finally managed to choke out, her voice thin and reedy. "That fund is managed by a board. You're a face, a representative. You don't have the authority to pull $6.7 billion on a whim." I am the board, Eleanor, Maya replied, her voice dropping to a level that felt like a physical weight in the room. And it wasn't a whim. It was a calculation. I gave you every opportunity to prove that Vance Global was a partner worth my capital. Instead, you proved that you're a liability. Maya leaned forward, her charcoal suit moving with surgical precision. She tapped the tablet and a video began to play. It was the security footage from the lobby, the high-definition angle of Eleanor slapping Maya's hand and dragging her toward the door. Clause 8.3, Maya stated, her gaze sweeping the room, stopping on the CFO in the pinstripe suit. The professional integrity contingency. It states that if any principal partner of the acquiring firm is subjected to physical hostility or public defamation by the receiving party, the deal is nullified instantly. Furthermore, a penalty of 15% of the total valuation is triggered as a reputation protection fee. The CFO's head dropped into his hands. She's right, he whispered. Eleanor, you signed it last month. We needed the cash so badly we didn't negotiate the morality clauses. I'll sue you. Eleanor shrieked, slamming her fist onto the mahogany. You trapped me. You walked in here dressed like that just to provoke me. I walked in here dressed to work, Maya said coldly. You're the one who decided that a person's dignity is determined by your narrow view of the world. You thought you were the gatekeeper, Eleanor. But the gates are gone. I've already contacted the secondary underwriters. By 5 p.m. they'll be pulling their support too. Without my lead, this company is a ghost ship. At exactly 3:17 p.m., the boardroom's massive stock ticker wall began to scroll in a frantic blur of red. The Vance Global ticker wasn't just dipping, it was evaporating. 10%, 25%, 40%. The numbers slid downward like blood on glass. The executives' phones began to scream with notifications. Margin calls. Bank freezes. Investors fleeing. Maya stood up slowly, smoothing the front of her blazer. She didn't look triumphant, she looked finished. You told me I was polluting the atmosphere, Eleanor. Well, the air is clear now, because there's nothing left.
Eleanor slumped back into her leather chair, her silver hair disheveled, her eyes hollow. The woman who had ruled the 47th floor for 3 decades watched as her empire turned to smoke. Around her, the elite, the men and women in their emerald and sapphire finery, began to stand up and walk out without a word. They weren't looking at Eleanor. They were looking at their phones, trying to save whatever scraps of their own careers remained. Maya paused at the door. She looked back one last time at the room of mahogany and glass, the cathedral control that was now just a quiet tomb. For future reference, Maya said, her voice echoing off the glass. Respect is the only currency that doesn't devalue. I suggest you learn how to spend it. As Maya walked out, the handshake collapse was already the top story on every financial network. By midnight, every job in the building was erased. The mahogany desks were being tagged for auction, and the brass letters were being stripped from the lobby walls. Because power doesn't need to shout. It just needs to walk away. If you believe that no amount of money justifies disrespect, like this video and share it. Tell us in the comments, what would you have said to Eleanor in that final moment? Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss stories that celebrate unstoppable dignity and the true face of power.